Okay, another question from someone on the Mortgage Jobs group. How do I market or gain a following, if possible, with my podcast? So, there's a million ways to do this. All of them are hard. And I think the biggest piece of advice I could give you is be patient. A lot of the folks that I listen to on the regular, if they're not already, don't have an already established audience or fan base, a lot of them will tell you that it took them 50, 100, 200 episodes before anyone cared about what they were doing. And so I think having a consistency around this project is going to be very important. But understand that, just like music, it's so easy to publish a podcast that everyone is doing it. And so it's very hard to stand out from the crowd. So a couple of things, by the way, I have not succeeded at this at all. But I'll let you in on a little secret on why I do it after. Number one, a couple of things that you can do is, how do you leverage someone else's audience? So when you're first starting out, you probably don't have an audience. So having guests on might be able to help you access their audience. But I think you got to build the infrastructure and the rails to help you do that. So it's not just as simple as having that guest on and making an assumption that their whole audience is going to listen to your interview. I think you need to build in things like, as you're courting a guest, or after that interview, make sure that guest has a nice thank you email and maybe some takeaways of here are 3 things that I would love that if you could do to help maximize the listenership, and maybe you give them some pre-packaged social media posts with graphics or Instagram posts or tweets, giving them a clear and concise message in terms of when that podcast is going to be live. And if there's value that you can bring to that guest, they're more likely to share that podcast or that content with their audience. So I think a really easy way to start trying to get traction is to bring on guests, conversations, and try to access their audience. Other things that people aren't doing probably enough of are thinking about publishing in multiple media locations. So it's a lot more work, but having that podcast syndicated on all the major platforms is one thing, but making sure that is, maybe you're filming that as well and it's going up on IGTV and Facebook and YouTube. And so allowing people to consume that content in any format that they want to could also help you to reach a larger audience faster. And finally, I think just being aware that you have to promote yourself, and this is something that I'm really terrible at. You have to be developing content and content about the content, and content about the content that's about the content on the regular. One of the things that I started doing when I was doing my own podcast and was diligent about it was to do basically video trailers for each episode, and those trailers got posted up to Instagram stories or Facebook, where it was almost like a movie trailer that kind of highlighted some of the what I thought were the best parts of that conversation, but it was really rapid fire, 20, 30 seconds, to let people know that that episode was now live. So I think using different ways to connect with your audience in terms of other mediums and networks is critical as well. So a lot of ways you can do it. All of them are hard. All of them take time. But that's my 2-minute rant on how do you get an audience.